Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the third installation of our Into the Breach on Unfair Difficulty run with the Secret Squad. We've got the third corporate island ahead of us. Mechs are on screen with the Techno Beetle. It's got a grid repulse and smoke behind on its ramming speed weapon. The Techno Hornet, the current MVP, heavily upgraded with plus 2 HP and skilled. So right now they're rocking 8 HP. They're a formidable tank. And then Techno Scarab with conservative and a Wind Torrent, newly acquired. So expect me to be babbling a lot about the Wind Torrent. Now it's on to island selection. I can see that Pinnacle's going to be pretty brutal. We've got Diggers, we've got the Mosquito Leader, but Detritus seems to be maybe even worse. We've got Spiders and Tumblebugs to deal with. Now, I decide to pick Detritus because it's going to be, I think, the harder fight. And if I can get through it, then the run will maybe have a better chance of closing out strong with that snowball. And I was also hoping that maybe the addition of acid and things would help me rack up some damage. So we have 3 missions available to us at the start. We have the Acid Storms. Kill 6 or fewer, and kill at least 7. So Acid Storms definitely was the stronger choice there, and it unlocks the most mission options for us. So we have to take less than 3 grid damage and destroy the Acid Storm controller, and until we do so, every unit will be soaked in acid, which is kind of to our benefit. You know, we do a lot of damage in a wide area with the Techno Hornets upgrade at the moment. But I have to be careful because we have spiders in play. We're going to have to deal with annoying webbing issues. I'm deploying my mechs, hoping that I can bait the Tumblebugs into putting their explosive boulders near the storm controller. But I do think twice about putting my mechs in a, in the first formation they were in, because then 2 of them could have gotten restrained by a spider egg. As expected, one of my mechs is going to get webbed, so the Techno Scarab is just going to have to deal. And we have otherwise 2 threats to the grid, both the Tumblebugs. And we also have our first of hopefully 2 time pods to deal with. This is a good example of the utility of the grid repulse weapon. We can use that to knock the Tumblebug away. And then really that will just leave the Scarab free to do whatever it wants. As you can see, it just targets a grid tile no matter where you are on the board. And then we can probably just finish off the Tumblebug. That's the move I would have done in retrospect. Yep, there we go. And that's good XP for the Techno Scarab. For the next turn, we will have to deal with essentially a 5v3. We're getting a Spiderling added, and a new friend is spawning in. Fortunately, you can only have a maximum of 2 Tumblebugs per map. So we are down 1, but then, alas, 2 of my boys get restrained. That's no bueno. But the consolation is that only the Tumblebug is threatening the grid. So this is the time to use the Wind Torrent, because it will break all webbing. And as you can see, you select one of the cardinal directions, and then everything capable of moving on the map moves 1 space in that direction. So we used it to not only free the webbing, but we used it to block a spawn and protect the grid. So this is a good opportunity to try and do damage to the mission objective, which we do with the Beetle. We'll block a spawn, and then friendly fire will kill the mosquito for us. but we are, of course, getting another spiderling added. And then there's that nasty double web. Now, depending on the map layout, Wind Torrent does have certain limitations. This is a good example. We can't push everything in one direction without having at least one thing bump into the grid. Something you need to be cognizant of. However, with a little bit of forced movement shenanigans, you can often try to get the grid, in the configuration you need it to. We managed to free the Hornet, but we didn't actually wind up freeing the Scarab. Instead, we just killed that Spiderling, which is kind of irritating. Skipping forward a little bit in time, it took me a while to see a resolution I was happy with. What I wind up doing is using Wind Torrent again to both protect the grid and destroy the Storm Controller. But we are still stuck at 5v3, not counting the Scion. Not being able to deal with that spider is proving to be extremely irritating. And we have used both our allotted wind torrents for the mission. So our options are becoming a little bit more limited. Normally, on most other squads, it's free to equip, and then one power core lets you use it as much as you want. For the Secret Squad, it cost me one to equip it, and then since my Scarab pilot has Conservative, I've been betting on having just 2 uses being good enough. And then we are going to end the mission with a sacrifice play, I believe. But it's okay. Having a pilot taken out for the Secret Squad is less punishing than for other squads. We're just going to lose some XP on the Techno Beetle, but we can live with that. We get Camilla Vera and a power core. Camilla is unusable, of course, but that's basically just an extra reputation we have banked. And then we are going to fully turn online the Techno Hornet's needle shot weapon. So now it can go to a maximum of 3 spaces, doing 3 damage. It is quite destructive. And since it already has skilled and +2 HP, we don't have to worry about the other upgrades to its base stats, really. So we have multiple options available to us here. And defend the VIPs is usually pretty player-sided. So we go with that, and it will let us see what the final mission option is for the island before we commit to anything further. Of course, we have both Tumblebugs and the Spider on the map. Because why wouldn't we? 2 of the most irritating enemies in the game, and we gotta deal with all of them in alpha form. I'm deploying far away from the Spider, both in the hopes of dealing with these Tumblebugs as best we can, and hopefully the Spider will waste time doing what it did, which is putting its little egoplasm on the Jeep. We've got functionally 2 threats to the grid here. The Tumblebug on D3 and the Firefly. Assuming that I either block the shot or move the Jeep out of the way, it will still take damage to the grid. However, the Techno Hornet is decidedly tanky at the moment and can easily eat an attack from the Firefly if need be. With the inclusion of the wind torrent as an option, my turns grow longer in length, as I have to really consider, all of the one-push, omni-push options. So this particular run, it took me over 40 minutes. I'm going to do my best to condense that in post. But as you can see, it is an absurdly powerful ability. We managed to not only defend the grid, but do some spawn blocking. And then we're just going to tank a couple hits on the Techno Hornet. Interesting that I decided not to attack the Tumblebug, though. I could have rammed into it, dealing it significantly more damage, weakening it. I'm not sure why I decided not to attack. Maybe I didn't want to put smoke in front of the grid on E3. But I'm regretting that decision. The Wind Torrent in general is a pretty strong tool against Tumblebugs. One of the rare, quote-unquote, hard counters. This turn, we have two threats to the grid, the Spiderling and the Tumblebug on C6. And we are quickly burning through those Wind Torrent charges. The question now is, can we destroy a Tumblebug? The answer to that looks like yes. We're just going to need to move that Jeep out of the way. And that will be it for those rooting, tooting Tumblebugs. So as you can see, once it's fully upgraded, the Techno Hornet is in many ways more powerful than the Hornet Leader boss fight. The Hornet Leader can attack 3 tiles, but it only does 2 damage. The Techno Hornet does 3. So the Op4 at this point is primarily made out of irritating spider garbage, as well as an Alpha Scarab. And we're out of Wind Torrents, so it is time to use our big boy brains. See what we can do with the tools available. Techno Hornet can do a 2-for-1 here with its extended range. We can kill both of the Spiderlings. But we still have to do something about this Scarab. Fortunately, we can free the Techno Beetle. So our final turn will be a pretty unpleasant 5v3. But we still have, both of the Jeeps are capable of moving. So our mission objective at least should be secure. We don't have any more Tumblebugs to worry about. So 3 Vec threatening the grid, which means that the Scarab attacking the Jeep we can basically ignore. We can just rely on the Jeep to save itself. Now, I have something of a brain fart here. I thought, oh, I can have the Scarab attack tile D6, not realizing that that would push the unstable boulder into the grid. Not the best play. What I can do is free the Techno Hornet and then push the Mosquito on E6 out of the way. So skipping forward a little bit in time, I wind up using a temporal reset. I was unhappy with where I deployed the Techno Scarab. I'm not sure that I needed to do that because I don't think I had acted with it yet. So I don't know. I was deep in the throngs of confusion. But it's okay. Grid repulse and a judicious use of the explosive goo will solve all our grid problems, and then the Jeep can just move out of the way. No big deal. We get our second time pod, which is good news. We'll be at maximum strength before our boss fight for the remainder of the island. It's just a question of where do I want to invest it. What I should have done was gone for unlimited uses on the wind torrent, but I decided to stick to my principles. And I decided to get the Add Shield upgrade on Grid Repulse. This adds some utility that is not normally, within the wheelhouse of this squad. We now have the ability to apply a shield to grid buildings, which could be potentially very useful. I was hoping for the Defend the Disposal Unit mission. Instead, we have a Destroy the Acid Vats mission. And this one, if memory serves, is going to be a real brain puzzler. Once again, of course, we have 2 tumblebugs and the spider. Our mission objective is to destroy the giant vats of acid. If memory serves, this mission took me a hot minute. We are going to be locked down in just tumblebugnightmare.com. As you can see, once again, I'm trying to avoid the spider with my deployment, hoping to minimize who gets webbed. So yeah, here we go. This is a toughie. We have 3 threats to the grid, both tumblebugs and the mosquito. The beetle is webbed, so its mobility options are quite constrained. And if we don't get it out of the way, it's going to be destroyed by the alpha beetle's attack. And my options here are quite limited. Very few of my mechs can do anything about the mosquito. I commit to freeing the beetle, which still leaves it as it's going to be killed by the Alpha Firefly's attack now. We do manage to negate the threat of the Tumblebug, but I really didn't like the prospect of being down a mech for the rest of the mission. That doesn't sound good. And my options for using Wind Torrent are also quite constrained. I could blow everything to the east, which would protect the grid on B2 and B3, but that still leaves me with the beetle getting destroyed. My beetle, the Techno Beetle. And if that comes to pass, I'm not sure there's anything the Techno Hornet can do to save him. So, skipping ahead considerably in time, I've used my temporal reset, and I'm already making some interesting choices. We destroy the egg, which smokes the firefly and cancels its attack. Now, I just have to do something about the tumblebug. And if worse comes to worse, I can probably afford to take 1 point of grid health here. The wind torrent allowed us to solve, 2 threats to the grid. Now we just have 1. I see. So we're going to do, we're going to take a point of grid health in the name of killing a tumblebug and destroying both of the acid vats. So the mission objective is accomplished. We just kind of took a sacrifice play in the name of sanity. But that took me a long time to cook up that solve. And maybe there was an even better one in there somewhere, but I had already used my temporal reset. And of course, this next turn is, we're in just as awful circumstances because we have 2 mechs webbed. Our only consolation is that we only have 1 threat to the grid, which is the tumblebug. So do I decide to put some serious damage on the spider in the name of freeing my other boys? I say maybe to that. We can at least defend the grid by shoving the tumblebug's prize out of the way. And there's the solution. Block the spawn with the spider and just get it out of here. So we still have a tumblebug to deal with. The next turn will be a 4v3. We have 3 threats to the grid this turn. We can ignore the mosquito. Hindsight being 20/20. I think the solve I will like looking at this board now is to either push the tumblebug away with either the Techno Beetle or the Techno Hornet, then use the Techno Scarab to push the mosquito in the way of the Alpha Firefly's attack. And then whichever one didn't push the tumblebug could have destroyed or dealt with the non-Alpha Scarab. But let's see what I came up with in the moment. So, not a decent solve. We do some spawn blocking instead. But with the solve that I described earlier, we would have gotten a vet killed instead. Consolation is that we can ignore the tumblebug and the mosquito. We just have to deal with the 2 scarabs, which is a task partially that the Techno Hornet can deal with. And we should be in the clear. And I don't even think we used both of our wind torrents that mission. But that one took me a long time. We're going to be skipping like several minutes in editing of me just staring at that first turn. We almost had a perfect island. I mean, we're still on track with the perfect island reward, but up until that moment we had lost no grid health. So with the idea of getting some grid health back, we want to pick one of the missions with a grid health reward. And I see that we have defended the detritus contraption and use it 4 times. This is going to be really tricky. As we've seen before, the detritus contraption, it has 2 missile barrages and 2 shield barrages. And the missile barrages will target and will detonate tumblebug boulders. So we must needs be cautious here. So it's our first turn. We have 2 threats to the grid and 1 minor threat to the detritus contraption itself. It can take 1 damage hit without being destroyed. And the beetle, Techno Beetle, has been restrained. The tricky part on this turn is honestly going to be the Scarab that is attacking the grid on F4. It's next to a mountain, which means the grid repulse will not help. So somebody needs to get an angle on it, and what that probably means is that we're going to have to use the Wind Torrent here. As long as we move the Techno Hornet, we can move everything on the map safely to the south. We just have to do something about defending against the Alpha Firefly's attack. But we do also have the detritus contraption to consider here. Killing a Tumblebug is always a good idea, and the spider will be very close to being destroyed. One volley from the detritus contraption itself, or so, or pushing it with the Wind Torrent. Beautiful. We have 3 enemies destroyed, and we can protect the Techno Scarab with the detritus contraption. So the next turn is a rare functional 3v3. Possibly even 3v4 if we're counting the detritus contraption as an ally in this endeavor. If we can deal with the Tumblebug, then yes, this is a good opportunity to use the missile barrage, as there are no unstable boulders detonating anywhere sensitive. So the next turn is going to be 4v3 or 4v4, halfway through the mission. Things are going pretty well. We got, the spider and the Tumblebug, one of the Tumblebugs taken care of early on. This seems like another good turn to use the shield. It will defend the Techno Beetle from being destroyed by the Firefly, and it will also preemptively shield the remaining unstable boulder, such that we can fire our final volley safely. The final turn will be a pretty manageable, hopefully, 3v3, or asterisk 3v4 in my favor. And the Techno Scarab has a shield such that it can withstand the final missile volley. So we should be in good shape here. So despite the fact that this island just took me a long time, you know, sitting there pondering my orb, this was relatively not too bad. We've only lost 1 grid health, on track for a perfect island reward. I think we're going to be 3 for 3 on that, assuming we can succeed at our final mission against the crab leader. So it's the crab leader, and of course the absolute worst spawns we can possibly have. There must be something, like, statistically weighing the initial spawn to always get the maximum of the, you know, the quote-unquote rare Vec. Because I think every single mission we've had double tumblebugs and a spider. I was kind of hoping that maybe I could bait the crab leader into attacking my little conga line of boys. I was not successful. But at least we minimize web exposure. So we have 3 threats to the grid, the tumblebugs and the crab. Indeed, the spider itself is incapable of threatening the grid. It is just a massive inconvenience and will be spawning problems. We don't have to use the wind torrent just yet. We're trying to save it until things get even worse. And then a nice solid hit on the boss, and we'll call that a pretty decent first turn. Fortunately, we're looking at a 6v3. With the addition of a spiderling and 1 new friend. I find that when the board becomes especially choked with enemies, you often get like a pity move, where the enemy decides to target your mechs over the grid. With the exception being the final mission. They usually try to go for like a kill shot. So Wind Torrent will protect the corporate tower. And then if we shield the other grid tile, then we don't have to worry about a chain reaction of explosions. So we're getting some nice value, I'd say, out of the upgraded grid repulse. And then we can finish off the boss. Techno Hornet, once again showing just how valuable a team member it is. But unfortunately, we're not out of the woods yet. We've got half the mission to go, and both tumblebugs and spiders are still alive. And we've used one of our precious wind torrents. The good news is we can ignore the tumblebug on D4, and thanks to grid repulse, we can also defend the grid on B3 if need be. So this is the turn to try and solve problems as best we can. Alas, we can't quite get that spider murdered. With spawn blocking, though, at least we haven't multiplied our problems. And I also see that the spider and one of the tumblebugs is at 1 HP. So if I can kill the Scion, they'll both die. Not that killing the spider on the final turn is especially valuable. And then I shake my fist in anger as I get 2 of my boys restrained. And then really we are out of the woods here. It's just a matter of, is there anything I can do to get fancy? And the answer to that is yes. The Technoscarab can get a little bit more XP if I bump the mosquito into the tumblebug. Beautiful. And that will be detritus for the secret squad. Getting 1 more perfect island reward. We also have a spare pilot to sell, so we should be able to get a nice tidy little profit of power cores for upgrades. And I just decided, I think, to take Henry in the interest of selling him. Or the grapple, it's all the same. The shop's options are interesting. We've got mass confusion, Vec hormones. Self-destruct has some sort of interesting synergy with the secret squad. But I just decide to be boring and invest in power cores. And I was thinking it was past time I upgrade the health on my other 2 boys. Technobeetle in particular was starting to feel kind of fragile. And a movement upgrade can't be bad for the Technoscarab. It's looking like it's just, yeah, move, health. Awesome. Solid increase to base stats. So join me for the final island on the next mission. I guess before the final mission. And I'll talk to you guys again soon.